kinds of pollution, but also about the solutions. This is what this book talks about. It is a light-hearted step-by-step guide on pollution developed by TERI with support from GAIL India Limited for sensitizing children towards pollution and environment conservation. May I request Ms. Anupama Jori, Head and Associate Director, TERI Press, to set the theme. With more than 30 years of experience in publishing, Ms. Anupama Jori joined TERI in 2010 as the head TERI Press. As the publishing arm of the organization, TERI Press has been instrumental in garnering, developing, and disseminating TERI's research and outreach activities. Under Anupama's guidance and supervision, the press has successfully captured a position for itself in the market. Ms. Jori.
Esteemed delegates, respected guests, teachers, students, and TERI fraternity. At the outset, let me take this opportunity to thank and welcome each one of you to events the launch of the book entitled Pollution Solutions, published by TERI and supported by GAIL India Limited. For a publisher, book release is one event whose thirst is never quenched. It only multiplies with time. In my opinion, good books are a service to the mankind. India is ranked third on worst air quality. PM2.5 concentration in India is 5.2 times above the WHO annual air quality guidelines. Also in 2019, National Capital of Delhi witnessed the air quality dropping to severe level owing to traffic emissions, burning of firecrackers, stubble burning, etc., which was declared in a public health emergency. Furthermore, around 80% of India's waste is severely polluted because people dump raw sewage, silt, and garbage into the country's rivers and lakes. Such facts mirror the deteriorating condition of our environment. Although a lot of work is done by government and people at individual levels, but it is important to note that while laws and regulations are helping, the effects of pollution are still apparent. Thus, this remains a problem largely unresolved, establishing that apart from introducing changes in policies and enacting law and order, inducing behavioral changes has assumed greater importance. We at TERI are committed to explore these issues and challenges and thus disseminate knowledge to different stakeholders, such as you all in this room. Our publishing arm, TERI Press, has been fulfilling its commitment by producing a wide range of publications pertaining to environment, energy, and climate change. In this endeavor, our latest offering is Pollution Solutions, a comprehensive book that promises to empower children with the knowledge of different type of pollution our generation is grappling with, how we can contribute to curtail it. It is my pleasure to have such illustrious and distinguished panelists today with us, who shall delve deeper into the subject of environment protection through sustainable choices and help us understand why it is important to involve children in environment protection. In the last 100 years, mankind has scaled Everest of success, progress, and knowledge. Remarkable technologies advancement are the hallmark of the modern world, but all these have come at the cost of environmental deterioration. Human growth essentially rests on environmental degradation, principally in the form of extreme exploitation of natural resources. For instance, countless trees are uprooted for bisecting sectors of a society and procuring raw material for the industries. Water bodies are polluted to the extreme level for dumping industrial waste, sewage, and wastewaters. We have built an empire on pollution. If we look around us, we can see tons of coals, countless liters of petroleum being exhausted for a 24/7 power supply to churn out production to keep the cities lit and vehicles running. Clearly, pollution and growth have become inextricably linked. To encapsulate Man has completely failed in living in harmony with nature because he has failed to understand nature, and this is because he doesn't value nature. On the contrary, children value everything they receive. If we can foster a concern for the environment and inculcate sustainable habits in young minds, foundation of future generations will be based on environmental literacy. This will help achieve sustainability in true meaning. According to me, environmental protection is not an activity. It's understanding, learning, application, and school are beyond the limits of a classroom. It's a lifestyle where each individual has to make noteworthy efforts in order to bring a welcome change. Water, air, and how land know, water, air, and land know no boundaries. So doesn't their pollution. Pollution is a global problem, hence it requires global solution. With this thought, I hope, like other TERI publications, Pollution Solution 2 will help children learn environmentally conscious sustainable practices, enabling them to become green citizens of planet Earth. Over here, I would like to convey a sincere thanks to the GAIL India Limited for encouraging the publication of this very timely book. I would like to conclude with my favorite quote from Baba Tayong, Sinhalese forestry engineer, who says, "In the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand. And we will understand only what we are taught." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Joy. Now I invite Dr. Sunil Pandey, Senior Fellow and Director, Environment and Waste Management Division, TERI, for opening remarks. Dr. Pandey has more than 30 years of consultancy research experience in the areas of municipal, industrial, and hospital waste management, waste to energy issues, impact assessment, air, water, and soil quality monitoring, site assessments, performance evaluation of ETP, and institutional strengthening and capacity building. He also teaches at TERI School of Advanced Studies and guiding PhD scholars for their doctoral research. Sir, please.
Thank you, Sonali, and also thank you, Urmi, to come out with such excellent book on the subject, and thanks to GAIL who could support the initiative. What I'll do is I'll try to engage you on how historically we started talking about pollution, and something which was visible was the first target initially. Some of you might have read the famous iconic book called Silent Spring. When in 70s it was realized that pesticides which we use are not so harmless as they seem to be, and causing a lot of pollution, whether it's water bodies, whether it's trees, other flora and fauna. And similarly, around that same time, what was happening in USA, was that a canal, which is incidentally called Love Canal, there were industries which were discharging waste in that. And subsequently, the canal died, and it was reclaimed for construction, and houses and community centers and schools were built on that. Suddenly, over the years, people started seeing that chemicals are oozing out from everywhere and fumes are coming out from everywhere. And then they realized that chemicals which are put underground are not still not safe. So even if you buy something, if adequate precaution is not taken, they still have potential to harm people. Third episode, unrelated, I mean not in Europe or US, in Japan, where industries started discharging mercury to the water bodies. And the fish, Japanese voracious fish eaters, suddenly they saw that people who were feasting on fish in that area started showing symptoms of mercury poisoning. And that showed that mercury which was discharged in water bodies was, available to humankind, not from the water directly, but from the fish which they were consuming. Fourth episode, very close to our home, very close to India. In 1984, December, night of 2nd and morning of 3rd, the infamous Bhopal gas tragedy which happened. And that was the time when we realized as a country that chemicals needed to be managed properly. It was a horrendous experience in terms of how if the industrial processes are not managed properly, they can cause immense harm. That is how the first time the regulation on waste management came in India, hazardous waste management regulation, because there was a felt need to look at, in addition to water and air, I'll not talk of air so much because Sumit is here, and he'll discuss about air pollution issues. In addition to air and water acts, why a regulation on waste is also required. And the book, as I have glanced through, tries to look this into totality, and which is also a requirement because many of you would know that the way we manage pollution at present, it's a lot of time what we call end of the pipe treatment. We try to look at chimneys, say fumes coming out of chimney, try to control that. What it might do is it might result into solid waste generation, it might result into water pollution while controlling the pollution in chimney. We look at our sewage treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants, try to treat pollution there. In the process, we generate a lot of solid waste. And this solid waste, again, we try to manage by either burying it in the landfill sites or incinerating in the incineration, again causing air pollution. So what I wanted to say is pollution is not to be seen in silos. It's something which we need to look at holistically. And this attempt is in right direction, where not only pollution aspects are seen holistically, but also Urmi has tried to link it with climate change perspective as well. As the cover page shows, there's a lot of water in the water body. You'll be surprised 10 years back, Sumit is also involved in the exercise which we are currently doing, looking at litters which is polluting marine waters. 10 years, 15 years back when this exercise was done, there was no plastic issue mentioned. And sewage was considered to be the biggest polluter of the marine waters. And now you look at plastics have become almost second most important issue after climate change debate globally. So with this, I'll close my remarks. Thank you very much for all of you who could make it here, and hand it over back to Sunil. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. We now have a video message from Mr. M.V. Iyer, Director, Business Development and Marketing, GAIL India Limited. Mr. Iyer is Director at GAIL, country's flagship natural gas company. He brings forth rich board-level experience and is chairman on the board of GAIL Global Singapore Pte. Limited and Konkan LNG Limited. Mr. Iyer is a seasoned hydrocarbon specialist with over 34 years of diverse experience in gas industry. Can we have the video, please?
Esteemed panelists at today's session, senior officials at TERI, students and teachers from participating institutions, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. I am thrilled to be a part of this wonderful initiative and would like to begin by congratulating the author, Ms Urmi A Goswami and Team TERI on the successful completion and launch of their book, Pollution Solution. I hope this book reaches young audiences and leaves an impression in their youthful minds. GAIL is the country's leading natural gas company and it owns and operates around 13,700 kilometers length of pan-India natural gas pipeline. We have been providing energy access of the cleanest form of fossil fuel, the natural gas, to drive country's energy transition. GAIL recognizes that natural gas can help address the challenges of climate change, air pollution, and enable India towards low-carbon economy. GAIL has been highlighting the menace of air pollution long before it became a part of mainstream conversation. We have been doing our bit to reduce the impact on the environment, especially in major Indian cities, including New Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Lucknow, Indore, Bhopal, etc., through CNG supply to vehicles and piped natural gas supply to domestic, commercial, and industrial customers in collaboration with our subsidiaries and joint ventures. Today, GAIL provides clean energy access to over 85 lakh domestic PNG connections in the country. However, a lot remains to be done. Air pollution is the fourth largest human health risk after high blood pressure, smoking, and poor diet. Data from WHO shows that 9 out of 10 people breathe air containing high levels of pollutants. Although awareness has increased over the years, further sensitization to nudge individuals to lead a sustainable and green lifestyle is needed. And one of the ways is to start the conversation early, especially in schools and colleges. We realize that change happens more often through public powered democratic movements than enforcement through laws. With this premise, in 2016, GAIL launched a digital awareness campaign, Hawa Badlo, meaning change the air. It is first of its kind campaign in India to sensitize people to harmful effects of polluting fossil fuels and to motivate them to voluntarily adopt cleaner energy alternatives. This campaign, which has since reached more than 100 million people, has been unifying people from all walks of life to come together to combat one of the most dangerous enemies of our times, air pollution, and adopt sustainable lifestyles. I encourage you all to join this campaign. India is gradually moving towards a more balanced energy mix and is promoting the usage of cleaner fuel, that is natural gas, hydrogen and renewables, to provide energy justice with energy access to the masses. Today, Government of India has set a target to raise the share of clean energy, including natural gas, in its primary energy mix and has initiated a series of measures for the transition. Recognizing the importance of energy transition and the carbon neutrality, GAIL is actively working towards diversifying the business portfolio to include renewable and alternative energy. I am glad to share that we have taken lead in leveraging hydrogen as a fuel in India and have started a pilot project in the CGD network of hydrogen blending. Additionally, GAIL is setting up a 10 megawatt green hydrogen plant in a place called Vijaypur. India needs reliable, affordable and sustainable energy solution to support its growing economy and become Atmanirbhar. GAIL India Limited's collaboration with TERI on this book, Pollution Solution, is with the intent that this book will create awareness about sustainable development goals and air pollution among the school children. We hope that this initiative will motivate one and all to incorporate sustainable changes in their lives and get the conversation going amongst the new generation of Indians. Once again, my best wishes to the author and the team at TERI for conceiving and putting this book together.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer, for your inspiring words. Now I would like to invite the author of the book, Ms. Urmi A. Goswami, to introduce the book. Ms. Goswami is a senior journalist with the Economic Times. She writes on environment, climate change, and sustainable development. She has traveled across the globe, keeping track of developments in the field, chronicling human treatment of nature and efforts being made to tackle environmental degradation and solutions to deal with the most challenging problem of our times. Ms. Goswami.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. I would like to start off by thanking TERI Press, for this opportunity to write this book. And basically, I have a hard act to follow after everybody's spoken before me. But the idea of writing a book for children in a way that it's like a non-fiction for children was an attempt to answer questions that they would raise. And as everybody else has said, it's about inculcating certain behavioral patterns, uh, certain behavioral patterns uh, that will change the way we approach the issue, or we of activities that actually create pollution. When as growing up, I lived in Japan, and I only got to go back there much later as an adult and as a journalist. And one of the things I was part of the program was a school visit. And what was interesting that even after all those years, this practice of having children, after the day's class is over, to put the class back together, to clean the thing, literally do everything, to clean up the school themselves, is something that lives. One of the programs that they were having that day was actually an effort by their municipality to teach children about segregating waste so that proper recycling happens. And what you realize is that for them, it's a bit of a game. They enjoy doing it because it's not studying. It's no activity that requires them to learn things, but it's a fun activity. And in the process, they learn. And I think that is part of the approach that I use for this book, is that it should be things that that children would encounter on their own, as to like, why can't we go out and play? Why are we being told to stay home? And then the question of air pollution arises. But the other thing that I seriously wanted to do was look at the other pollutions that we don't talk about a lot. And two of those which come to mind immediately are light and noise pollution. We don't think about the fact that we look up in the night sky and you can't see a star. And why that is the case. And some of it is because of the way we use lights. Of course, each thing is connected. At the end of the day, you use lights better, you use less electricity, you use less resources, and then you avoid, the whole question of greenhouse gas pollutions. But at the end, it is about making sense to 8 to 12-year-olds for whom this book is geared, that it shouldn't be that an adult is telling them, do this, don't do that. It's something that should make sense to them. And I think all of us encounter that, in our own sort of dealings, that it's almost like you have to engage with children as if they were sort of mini adults, I presume, in one form or another. So that is really, I hope that that we have been able to do with this book. This book truly wouldn't have been possible. I use my mother, who's sitting right here, as a sort of a first round reader. She's been a teacher, so it's easy to rely on her experience to see if it makes sense. My sister, who again, all these people got co-opted into being my first reader and literally my guinea pigs. I also want to thank Nandita, who is not here today. I don't think I would have been able to finish doing this book in record time if not for these three women who made sure that I stayed on the straight and narrow. And of course, I want to thank Anupama, who very silently has been spearheading the effort. But thank you all so much for this opportunity. GAIL, of course, for taking an interest in this and ensuring that the book moves far beyond just writing it. It's also very heartening to see TERI Press actually. TERI does a lot of books for kids, but it's really great to see that it's getting more play, because that is the one demography that we treat in an interesting way, but they are capable of actually spearheading change in many ways. We have seen it in many issues where they're taught something in school and they go home and they try to get parents to follow. So I think that I hope that this book sort of helps in that effort. Once again, thank you to everybody who's here today. Thank you to Anupama, her team, and TERI Press, and and everybody else at TERI with whom I have had a long association as a journalist, who I have traveled over the years. I see two people right in front of me who have traveled over the years, and I promise that I'll keep troubling you more. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now request all the panelists to join us on the dais for the panel discussion, A Way to Cleaner and Greener Earth. Our first panelist is Dr. Sunil Pandey, who will be chairing the panel discussion. Dr. Pandey is Senior Fellow and Director, Environment and Waste Management Division, TERI. Our second panelist, Dr. Sumit Sharma, Program Officer, United Nations Environment Program in India. Dr. Sharma is a PhD in Environmental Sciences from Indian Institute of Technology, New Delhi, and has about 20 years of experience in the areas of environment and natural resource management. Before UNEP, he has worked as director at TERI and has worked with a wide range of environmental and sustainability issues, including air pollution and waste management. Our third panelist, Mr. Shantanu Roy, Executive Director, GAIL India Limited. Mr. Roy, Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering and Masters of Business Administration with over 37 years of multifaceted experience, is working in the fields of business development, sustainable development, and corporate affairs in GAIL, a Maharatna PSU. He had been part of top management team in GAIL for over a decade and has previously headed the Corporate Function Strategy and Planning Projects Development Center of Business Excellence. Our fourth panelist, Dr. Kavita Sharma, Professor, Department of Elementary Education, NCERT. Dr. Sharma has rich experience of more than 26 years in research, teaching, developmental, and training activities. After completing her PhD, she has joined NCERT in 2001, and her area of specialization is environmental education, elementary education, and chemistry. Our last panelist is Ms Urmi Goswami, Senior Journalist, The Economic Times, and the author of the book. I now hand over the floor to Dr. Pandey to begin the discussion.
Thank you. So I'll not. Yeah, thank you. So I'll not say anything more after engaging you earlier in the opening remarks, and we have excellent set of very distinguished speakers on the panel. And what we'll do is the sequence is already given to me, so I'll start in the same sequence, and I'll also not introduce panelists because that's already been done by Sonali. So book actually looks at different aspects of pollution. So our first panelist, naturally, I'll start with Dr. Sumit Sharma, and who's also a close associate. We have worked together many years now. He's a program officer looking at marine litter issues and also other pollution issues at the United Nations Environment Program. So I'll ask him to basically address the issue of air pollution from the young, what the younger generation, young minds in the country, how can they look at it, and how can they look at addressing some of the issues relating to air pollution. So,
thank you so much for your kind introduction, sir. Let me just start with a broader environmental thing before narrowing it down to air pollution. We'll just throw in some statistics to warm all of you up and all the panelists. Let's talk about India. It's not that only India is polluted. There's so many parts of the world which are polluted, but let's talk about India today. We have almost 75–80% of our cities which are not meeting our national ambient air quality standards. Forget the WHO standards, which are much more stringent. Most of our rivers are falling in category E. So you have A, B, C, D, E categories for water quality criteria, and E is the lowest. That shows the state of water quality in our rivers. Waste management, Dr. Pandey, of course, can talk for days and days on that. We have started doing some sort of collection and dumping it somewhere. We are far away from segregation. We are far away from real processing and recycling of wastes. Forest cover is shown to increase somewhat, but the overall density of our forest cover seems to be deteriorating. Land, if you see, a huge chunk of our land is coming under degraded category in different forms across the whole country. What are we doing? Yes, we are growing economically, but is it the way we want to grow? If we want to, slip after reaching a hilltop, I'm sure, we all will agree that this is not the way we really want to go. And I think that is where, our consciousness needs to come up and acknowledge this fact that we have reached this stage where we cannot afford this to happen anymore. And it is not impossible that we cannot grow without polluting. Fortunately, now we have technologies, we have strategies, we have experience from our own country, from outside of our own country, which can tell us that you can grow this, without polluting the environment, and that's basically is known as sustainable development. Now, coming to air pollution, I mean, I worked in TERI for 18 long years, and I tracked how air pollution grew over the years in India. And in last 5-6 years, somehow, we all woken up seeing the visible smoke entering our windows and polluting our minds and hearts and all the parts of our bodies. We are seeing some momentum going in good direction. We are seeing the National Clean Air Program, getting implemented to some extent. There's a lot to be done. I'm really not saying we are close to any good at this moment, but at least we have woken up to this, challenge and opportunity to save so many lives of in this country. You'll be surprised, almost 17% deaths happening in India are attributable to air pollution. That's one of the most biggest, aspect, which is actually killing people in real sense. So I think we all need to be worried about it. Government has a lot to do, industry has a lot to do, but individuals has the most to do. Unless we start, changing ourselves. I think the first thing is avoid. If we really don't need something, we have to avoid it. We don't just need to buy it because someone else is buying it or doing it. We cannot avoid, we can shift to better options. And if we cannot shift, then I think improve is the category that, I'll just give this example of cars. We all use cars. So best is to avoid that trip. I can walk, comfortably, I should walk comfortably. If I cannot avoid, I need to go, a little longer. Then I can shift to better options, metro and buses and, cooling and non-motorized cycles and all those things. If I have to use car, can I use the best, most efficient mode of car, the smallest which can fit in best onto the roads? So I think these are the options which we must start thinking about before making our choices. And all of us, you, me, everyone have a role to play. Children have a larger role to play because you need to show us examples. You are the ones who can actually guide us. You can actually, tell us that whatever you're doing is wrong. And, let's adopt a better way of living. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sumit. Very interesting perspective. And interestingly, also some of you might have noticed that in the morning, there was a small news item saying that there was a fire at the East Delhi dump site at Ghazipur. And this fire, a lot of time happens because of a gas which comes out from the anaerobic digestion of waste. Which we call landfill gas, and when it comes out uncontrolled, many times it catches fire. So, fortunately, we have Mr. Roy amongst us, who is the executive director, who has been working with gases, and gases is something which is his forte. So I'll ask him not to explain only what GAIL as a corporate doing for taking actions on controlling or contributing to controlling pollution, but also how such gases can also be gainfully utilized. They need not be turning into such fire episodes in future. So, Mr. Roy.
Good afternoon. Sir, with your permission, I would like to first start with my personal thanks to the author. We are here for the book, and I am here to give my personal thanks. Though I am in the industry, I love to interact with people, including many sessions I have taken in TERI and so many places. It is so difficult to initiate a person. Once you're initiated, it becomes much easier. We all know this, I'm sure. So I had really tough time explaining even very basic things to much more adults. So thank you. You have written in a very wonderful manner. And light pollution is something that was teaching to me. Thank you so much. Okay, to your question, sir. Gas, like everything else, is good and bad. How we use it is important. Gas can become the source of energy, a huge source of energy. Landfill gas, yes, GAIL had tried to use that particular place, Gazipur. I had been there several times, where we installed a mini turbine to make power out of it. I would not like to get into the reasons why it was not a success. Definitely not a technological reason, more of administration reason, which I think is not the right forum for us to discuss. So gas per se has got a lot of, those of you who had been lucky, I would say, if you get an opportunity to visit Amsterdam, I would like all of you to spend half a day just outside Amsterdam. There is the biggest waste power energy source. You might be knowing that from all across European Union, people send their waste products to Amsterdam, and Amsterdam earns a lot of money out of it in converting that huge, it's like it will be almost as big as this India Habitat Complex. As much as there are so many control rooms and hundreds of trucks coming in from across Europe. And that's again the landfill thing, primarily the landfill thing, it's converted into power. So there are many ways of doing it. I am aware that I'm not supposed to speak about GAIL, but let me tell you about some solution, because solution is what inspires us. In a new business model, because ultimately industries have to work for business, and the business has to be sustainable. That's the fundamental way. It cannot be, business cannot run on philanthropy. Individuals can. So we successfully developed a model of working together with the municipality of Ranchi. Those of you who have been seen to Ranchi over the years, it has become very difficult to stay in Ranchi, like many other cities. So we worked with a solution where the municipal waste by Ranchi will be collected and dumped at a place. I mean, the dump yard is already there. That if you happen to see that dump yard, it is horrible. So we were given a space. We are building up a plant there to make CNG out of it, gas, which will be used. So this is a model, and we have got into. Let's not get into the business part of it. But what I'm trying to say, collaboration amongst all affected people is essential reality. So far as Delhi is concerned, we are all in Delhi. There are many models being done by the various SDMCs and NDMCs and whatnot. This is not the right forum to discuss all that. But definitely Delhi has got a huge potential and difficult, no doubt. All those who have ever gone near Gazipur would know how difficult it is. So far as Delhi is concerned about Hawa Badlo, I mean, this is one thing possibly many of you, those who are connected to the social media would know. This is one effort that GAIL has been actively doing, and our CC members are all here, very young people, they all lead it. We try not to make GAIL's products as a business part of it. Yes, obviously GAIL is in the business, but yes, we try to do healthy living. And if you see most of our media clips that it involves common people, policemen, actual policemen, I would say, actual children, not actors, actual sportsmen. Milind Soman was one of them who did it, all that. So what we just now heard, everybody has to play a part, industry has to play a part, but who takes the baton? I really don't see, when I see the videos of Greta Thunberg, I make it a point that I'm not near anybody. I'm making this statement again. I ensure that I'm alone when I listen to her. Why? Because she is, okay, she is a great thing in explaining herself, all that. But what she says really hurts me. That you have taken away my children. You have taken away all the hopes here, and you are telling all lies. I had a lot of hopes. Many of you might have been there also. In 2015, December, the famous COP21 at Paris. And when I see COP26, which has just now happened, all those, I'm sure he would support. It's in paper, many things are happening, but the clock is ticking much, much faster. I'm sure, I hope I could see only 1 or 2 children, they would be there till 2070. None of us would be there. But let 2070 be a real place, because only one thing, ma'am, I suggest from my experience of interacting with people in many institutes, the tipping thing, if you can put it in your next edition, it is either a couple of years from now or never. Possibly that's the only suggestion I can give to you after I read the book twice at a stretch. Thank you.
Very good perspective on how corporate sector should look at managing resources. In fact, from adversity, a lot of time the opportunity comes. You all, other than air pollution, of course, is a serious concern. But water is also not very far behind. If you look at usage of water, the way we use water currently, very few people still, practice use water very conservatively. And as a result, what has happened is most of the regions are now water stressed, and groundwater levels have been falling down, and there is a serious concern. Many countries have started looking at how they can refine water, and many countries, the citizens there have started accepting that this refined water, even from the sewage, if it is a drinking water quality, they don't have any objection on drinking. And a lot of you would know the example from Singapore, new water example, which where they were refining, they were purifying sewage to some so much such extent that people are now accepting that as a drinking water. In fact, if you look at that perspective, probably in India we don't still accept that as a drinking water. But what we are drinking after refining from our rivers are nothing but sewage. So in a way, we are also doing that. And also, interestingly, there's also a lot of proactiveness by industries now, where they're now using sewage generated by cities, to refine that, to purify that, and to use it in industrial operations. So that is something which these are some of the initiatives which have come from a pressure situation where we have realized that we are under pressure, and if we don't take solution, if we don't find out solution soon, it will be a problem. So, but that needs to be communicated. That needs to be communicated to people, communicated to people who are on ground, who can take action, including school students and academicians. So I'll move to, with this background, I'll move to our third speaker, Professor Kavita Sharma, who is a Professor of Education at NCERT. And most of the students can connect with NCERT. And I'll ask her to give her perspective on how to connect with, on these issues, how to connect with younger minds who would be decision makers soon. So, Professor Sharma, your business.
Good evening, and thank you very much, my esteemed panelists and the esteemed audience here. So I'm thankful to the TERI for giving this invite, and heartiest congratulations to the author who has brought out this excellent publication with the, of course, with the support of TERI team. We have found this important issue, that is pollution, which is actually a burning thing, a burning topic, especially in a city like Delhi that we see today. As far as I'll be speaking about is a little different from the other panelists, since I come from the education background. So where the textbooks and things and the supplementary material and the teacher guides, all these things are developed, and how we take this perspective forward, for children. And the book has also been brought for young children, 8 to 12-year-olds. So talking about this, what I think personally is that you all might agree that the environmental issues, if those are all the issues that we come across today, these are very complex issues, and we cannot be addressed in a manner that if we start looking at giving them a kind of with a narrow-minded approaches or with unilateral kind of approaches, we tries to address them. These all need kind of multifaceted efforts, at different forums, by involving people with diverse backgrounds and people who have diverse, expertise, and also they are from, different areas. So similarly, since I come from the field of education, so I may be a little biased, but I consider education to be the most important, tool that, it can play a kind of pivotal role in the entire process. I hope you agree with me on that, but I consider it, in this way, that if we actually start taking things seriously in education, in our schools, at home, and, so the issues can be addressed to a large extent. Well, what kind of education are we actually looking at? How are things being implemented at the ground level? If you see that, if it gets restricted to merely, acquiring that sort of information that children cram and then they reproduce in the examination to just score marks, then do you think that this kind of education will actually fulfill the aims of environmental education, or the addressing those environmental issues that we are struggling with today? Because if we see environmental education, at least it does not fit into this criteria at all. There could be certain subjects, for example, maths, science, other subjects, which might have a certain body of knowledge. That if you see that, for example, geometry, that is exactly this comes under maths, then you will not think of any other subject. If you say that, okay, GPA, you'll say economics. But the issues like now the pollution that we are talking about, do you think that it can be actually, categorized in one particular subject? Or it's a sort of thing which is multidisciplinary. It has its tentacles, embedded in different subjects, maybe mathematics, science, social science, political science, geography, across all subjects. So if we are having this kind of, education for environment, so certainly we need to have people who teach these aspects also need to have that multidisciplinary background. So that's how our in the recent policy of education, even the earlier ones, but the recent which has been rolled out in 2020, categorically, emphasizes on giving a multidisciplinary education across all schools, even at school level and even at higher levels. But in addition to that, it also mentions that you cannot just burden children, with or the curriculum load that we are giving to the students. It needs to be reduced. On one side, we are talking about giving one more subject of environmental education, and we are also want the curriculum load to be reduced. Then how to do that? At the national level in NCERT, we are saying to use an infused approach for environmental education. Because if the environmental concepts, these are multidisciplinary, the issues are multidisciplinary, then these, of course, can be infused across all subjects, and it is the duty of all teachers to teach these concepts. There should not be one separate subject on this. And also, especially for children at the early grades, if those children are from 3 to 6 year olds or 8 to 12 year olds, 7 to means 12-year-old. If you think of such children in the foundational stages, that means in the preparatory kind of thing where children are in the preschool or in classes 1 and 2, then what do we think of them? How do we think of transacting this environmental component at that stage, where the entire thing is seen holistically? At classes 3 to 5, we introduce one more subject, environmental studies. That also is an integration of science and social science and environmental education. How do we think of addressing all these issues of the, at that particular stage? So, of course, children are very young. They also do not perceive their environment, through the lenses of different subjects. For them, this is not maths, this is not science or social science. They perceive everything holistically around them. So how to introduce, that all these concepts, and I'm sure all the concepts or the knowledge should be given at those particular stages in a manner so that, they enrich, it is presented in a manner so that it helps them learn better. So what kind of pedagogy is to be needed? What kind of resource material in addition to the textbooks? Textbooks are one of the resources that we are developing. So what kind of resources are required for children at that level? Pedagogy is in the sense that we want them to give them a body of knowledge. Till now, we are at the implementation level. We see we are only transacting the textbooks in a manner that we are giving information. But children also need to acquire those skills. Children also need to acquire the right kind of aptitude, the attitudes and the dispositions and the values. So if those are not there, then simply we are only, developing those kind of machines. We are giving them this kind of knowledge, and with that knowledge, we are asking them to go for the very hefty packages, these kind of which are the jobs which are available in the industry. So unless and until an emotional connect is developed, that sensitivity is developed, then that kind of education is far away from its aims. Now, how to do that? Basically, the kind of resource material, there are 3-4 principles that we think of, because we can't develop all the materials for the entire country for all children. We develop certain exemplar material. The textbooks are also exemplar. The supplementary material is also exemplar. That is there in the form of print material or in the e-mode, all those things that we are doing, audios, videos, everything. But we want the people, the other states and other organizations to basically think of 3-4 things. First one, the foremost, I say it should be age appropriate. That we should not try to give the kind of concepts which are beyond the level of class 3 to class 3 children. So the concepts and issues need to be given in an age appropriate manner. And secondly, if you give them that kind of in a way that which are highly children can relate it with their environment. That means the context is very important. The kind of resource material that is available, especially for young children in our country, if you go to the libraries or the internet, you will find a lot of material is there, but that material is no longer relevant to them. It belongs to the other countries. So how do we develop that kind of material which is relevant for our children? For children staying in Sikkim, if you give them the kind of, the concept of tsunamis, they may not be able to relate it to that immediately. The kind of earthquakes that they face, they get jolted every day with the kind of earthquakes are very different from the experience from those children who are there in the coastal areas. So that's how we think that, and secondly, that the kind of knowledge that we are giving in the textbook, that it should be, the teachers should be able to create it in the form of learning opportunities so that the other skills are also, they get inculcated, and they're also given the right kind of values also. So some of you might think that why, children at the early stages need to be given, such kind of environmental issues, pollution, climate change, things like that, because these are meant for the children at the higher stages, secondary stage or beyond. The material that also you see in our country that is developed is also, for these kind of stages. But as I'm very happy that the book has been brought for the children of 8 to 12-year-olds. Somebody has at least thought of this age group. Most of the time it caters to the children at the higher stages. Why for these children it is so important, as Ms. Goswami also said that as early as possible, if you just give them those habits and the dispositions, those are developed in early stages in a much better way. It's very easy to mold children at this level. It's very difficult to transform the adults. The adult learning is very, very difficult. So at this age only, if you strike at that moment, at that time, if you just give them the right kinds of things in the right manner, they are going to take it, lifelong with them. And the second thing is that children are important agents of change. We all witnessed how, when, during Diwali times, when children were actually, this kind of campaigns were launched across schools against these bursting of these firecrackers, the pollution levels actually came down. And the media had recorded that, newspapers had those reports. So children can be considered as important agents of change. They can bring those. You sensitize one child, the whole family is sensitized, and with that family, you can bring that change in the society. So with these words, I will only say that, of course, through education, things may be, sound to be this might appear to be a very long path, but definitely, but the changes can be everlasting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Sharma, for providing us the educator's perspective and what are the requirements and how do we need to proceed. Our last speaker in the panel, Ms Urmi A Goswami, and she's already presented her view as an author, so I'll probably ask her to present her views as a journalist, or what kind of bridge they can provide for connecting the knowledge which is generated with the change makers, future change makers.
Thank you. One of the things that comes across when we look at this panel is that the different stakeholders and everybody has a role. And I think if each one of us get down to playing our role, we can push the envelope and actually make a change. One of the things that strike me as a journalist when I write on any environmental issue, I mean the triple environmental crisis, whether it's biodiversity loss, pollution, or climate change, is just the immensity of the problem that we face. And yet, in each of those, we see very simple things that can be done. They may not solve the problem, but they can go a long way. And I think that is the critical part of it. When we talk about air pollution, one of the many things we talk about big things like crop burning. We talk about switching from coal to renewable. These are important issues. I'm not denying any one of them. I mean, I spent a fair amount of time writing on them, so I do believe these are important. But there are also simple things which we need to do, is inculcate the habit of using public transport, or walking to a place where you don't need to take a car. So if you can do things within the 1 kilometer radius of your home, you shouldn't be taking your car out. You should be walking it. Planting trees. These are simple, no regret measures. And I think that is a part of the conversation that we don't highlight, whether for adults or for children. And part of the effort in this book, I mean, as a journalist, I actually don't communicate with this age group. So in this book, one of the efforts has been to kind of remind, to tell children, but also hopefully tell their parents and adults around them through these children, that there are things that can be done. Yes, there are big things that need to be done, that government, industry, associations, researchers, journalists, every stakeholder needs to do. But there's simple things that we can do, like how we, simple thing like turning off the light, turning off the tap, walking, carrying, of course, from 1st July it will become the law, but but otherwise carrying a cloth bag instead of asking for plastic bags, and so on and so forth. And I think that's the critical thing is, yes, change is difficult. Yes, where we are standing, and thank you, Mr. Roy, for drawing attention to the issue of tipping points. It's just that one has to find a way of saying it in a simple manner, and without it being sounding as cataclysmic as it is. But yes, thank you for that idea, and hopefully that will I'll be able to translate that into something in the future. But how do we, or what are the things that we can do as everyday people? So we don't have to, yes, it's important to take heroic steps, it's important to take big steps, but it's also important to take those small steps. And I think that is what is that is what this is geared to. And I just hope that as communicators, whether as journalists writing for adults or young adults, or writing for children, or any age group for that matter, or any segment, we are able to stress that particular point. The big measures are important, but you cannot forget the small measures, because the small measures add up. And we would be just surprised when we add up the small measures, how much big they actually lead to. And I think that is the critical part of the conversation. It shouldn't be, there is a sense of helplessness. I was at COP21 and at COP26, and I remember being really excited at COP21, because it felt like, at last we have made a move. But obviously in the intervening years, you realize the huge task that's ahead. And perhaps the secret is what we learned as children, to chip away at it little by little. And he or she who can chip more, chips more. He or she who can't, chips little. And that is what this is about. So that is the one idea I would like to leave behind with this book. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very enriching discussions, and I'll like to summarize it with 2 bullets. One is every step counts in journey. So that's first point. And for me personally, I've reached a stage where probably learning is easier for me than de-learning, and probably some amount of de-learning will be required to connect. And with this, I'll thank again all my panelists for providing their views, and close the session and hand it again to Sonali. Thank you.
Thank you to
Thank
the
you very much.
chairperson and panelists for sharing their thoughts with us. May I request Dr. Pandey to please give a small token of our appreciation to all the panelists.
How are you? Should we go back with? Or
Yes,
Sorry. So wait, just a second. So, should I reset? Thank you very much, Mr. Roy.
So please.
Thank you, position. Unfortunate that you made your way and that we are sitting. Thanks. I think.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, doesn't.
No.
Thank you. You keep sitting, or how do you conduct?
Yeah,
I had to go there. So नहीं आप आइए ना.
I feel comfortable listening to you.
I think Mr. Roy, Dr. Dhawan and Urmi be there.
So we'll first start with the book launch, or we'll first have. Okay, perfect.
And now request Dr. Dhawan, Director General TERI, to deliver the special address. Dr. Dhawan is the Director General of India's premier research institution, the Energy and Resources Institute, and has been associated with TERI since 1985. Dr. Dhawan is actively involved in research as well as policy development at the national and international levels.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sonali, and I really enjoyed the part of the panel which I attended. Uh, Very interesting, and let me first start by welcoming our guests. Of course, Mr. Iyer could not join us, but his video recording message was played. Sumit, of course, I still count him as TERIite.
Still there.
And I was telling him, come back. There is nothing in UN organizations. He can do much more in TERI. And we are a premium research organization, for sure.
Of course.
Mr. Roy, welcome to TERI. I'm sure we'll have many more opportunities to work together as well. And some of you might be aware of the excellent programs being carried out by GAIL, Hawa Badlo. So that is such a big initiative because we are talking about what is happening to our environment. Kavita ji, it was very nice, and I was reminded when my grandson went to the school and the teachers called the parents, nursery, kindergarten, and they said, here is a pencil, now write with your feet. Now no parent could write it. And they said, why are you unable to write? Because your muscles are not developed that way. Why do we expect these tiny tots to write ABC? So you are absolutely right in pointing out that give them the message when they can absorb that message. Don't give them too much of knowledge when they're too young. So thank you for bringing back that message to us. And Urmi ji, thank you very much for the fabulous work. Why we do say that children are young, I personally feel, yes, they're definitely young, they perceive in a different way, but what they learn at that stage is for the lifetime. What their teacher says while they are in preschool or till class 5, teacher is like God to them. And they are very innocent at that age. They are free. They will ask you any question. They'll ask your neighbor any question. They'll even like, sometimes it becomes awkward when they tell a guest who is coming to your place and they say, don't you think it's waste of money? Don't you think this packing is not good? Or yes, it's a big car, but what is the efficiency of the petrol? Do you think you should be driving this car? So they are very innocent, so it is very important for them to understand the subject. We all, of course, we are recovering from this COVID phase, and therefore these 2 unfortunate years perhaps, let's hope they have never existed, but the fact of the matter is that all of us, we were confined to the 4 walls of the house or just limiting our travel and everything. Very bad for the children because they must go to school and play and do everything. Let's look into something which COVID has taught us. First is, we have only one planet to live. There was no possibility that over here is COVID, so let's migrate to Mars. We couldn't do that. The other is whatever, or even today, we are worried that if COVID is back in other places, what's going to happen to India? Which essentially means what happens in anywhere in the world is going to have impact on us. Broad lessons. The other lesson is how clear the skies were. Perhaps the time when we were under total lockdown, you look at the sky and it was perhaps you have only seen in photographs, not otherwise in Delhi. You sit in your balcony and you'll find the birds which you have never seen before. And it was so, I should say, from the point of view of enjoying nature, perhaps that was the best time. And we could have never been able to explain to our children what the world will look like if it is pollution free. And that is what has happened during that time. With that, I'll say, because children, they are very curious, they want to understand. And then some of them, they started asking their parents, why can't the world be what it was during the COVID time? Not in terms of not going to school, but in terms of enjoying nature for them. And in a way, parents don't have an answer. And then, of course, you start explaining to them, we use cars and therefore that emits GHG or all the activities, that is what is happening. And then they ask you another question, and that is, when you were children, was the pollution problem as much as what it is today? And again, in a way, I'll say that it's very embarrassing for you to say it wasn't that bad, which means it's our generation which is to be blamed for what the situation exists today. And thus, it is important that we involve them as stakeholders, let them learn and not follow the path which we have followed. Because really speaking, because of our deeds, they are the ones who are suffering. If we look at the development of our country, great. People are happy, they do get jobs. It's not the same what it was, say, 30, 40 years back, that a person who is studying in IIT, people used to say his soul, the day he gets admission in IIT, his soul gets transferred to United States and the body follows after 5 years. And that was largely because of the research infrastructure available there and money to some extent. Today, that's not the case. We have best of the infrastructure, our salaries are pretty good to survive and so on. What is the worry of, I should say, well-to-do parents today? During the month of November, December, wherever you meet young parents and they say, I don't know whether Delhi is the right city to stay or not, especially for my child. You talk to those who are lung specialist doctors. And one of my friend's son, he had specialized in that, pulmonary. And the simple thing was when I was talking to him, which area he's specializing in. And he said, cases तो बढ़े ही हैं pollution करके, सबसे ज़्यादा तो दिल्ली में उसी का scope है अब. We are not looking for that kind of world. We are looking for a world, or rather, a sort of thing, what is it we are going to leave for our children? I think we have our children, the kind of education, the kind of opportunities they are going to get, they don't need even a single penny from us. They can earn themselves. So what we have to give them is the kind of environment we inherited. Let's go a generation back and at least create that kind of environment. Development definitely has to take place. It will take place, but fortunately now we have cleaner options. So it becomes important to tell its child, what are the causes of pollution to some extent? How can you contribute? And you rightly mentioned, when should you take your car? Parents also, they are very comfortable, even if they have to leave their child to the bus station, they'll pull out their car because it will save them 10 minutes. And it's very funny, like you go to the garden and outside the garden, you see hundreds of cars because people are using cars to go from their residence to the park on car. And then they'll show to the world they are doing walking of 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers. So they don't even think what is the emission they are causing. So ultimately it's going to have impact on them, have impact on their children. And the other thing is, it's not everything to be taught. Lead by example. Because kids, they see what their parents are doing, what their grandparents are doing, and they imbibe that value system. So therefore, it is our duty to be responsible and to set an example. And our children, I can assure you, they are far more clever than us. They are far more responsive than us. They know what the pollution is. They know what the fresh air means. So please help them. And I'm very glad and grateful to GAIL to have supported this particular publication because it's our collective duty to change the minds of, or rather, I won't say change because they still don't have a fixed mind, but to give them good value systems, to understand them various issues, and then be a more responsible citizen in the future. So they are the most important stakeholders to whom we must educate. So thank you, sir, for and take our message back to GAIL. We'd like to work with you more and more on such topics. And I'm sure this book will be useful to all the children, and we'll try to disseminate it as much as possible to all the young minds. Thank you. So now we have the book launch.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging words. Now we have reached the much awaited part of this program. I would request dignitaries to launch the book. Yes, yes. Ms. Jory, please join us here.
Should we come in front here?
Or
Here.
can go in
I
front.
think that will be a better place.
All of us?
Yeah,
Yes.
why not? ये लाइए आप को देंगे like today.
I like this book.
My son is in exact same age.
So,
तुम बच्चे हो, I'll say my grandchildren. तो जो
Open. Let's open it.
you. I'm going to request you for your autograph on this. I hope you're giving us one, isn't it?
This is our copy, right?
This is our copy, because I'll take the autograph and then you tell me to return.
I need a
Sure.
get pen. Thank you. Yeah. I won't come on, but okay.
Well, it's a common thing.
GAIL was involved in the first sectoral climate change study done by TERI.
Thank you so much.
I can't resist myself.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Roy.
That was done only 2012. And
Okay.
when the concept of climate change was just considered.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. You had to convince people. And now everyone knows it's a reality.
I took your pen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Now I would request Dr. Livleen Taylor, Senior Fellow and Associate Director, Environment Education and Awareness, TERI, to deliver the vote of thanks. Dr. Taylor is an experienced environment educator. She has over 2 decades of experience and has led several interdisciplinary teams examining cross-cutting issues such as energy conservation, wash education, waste management, climate change education, etc.
Grams maybe, those must be settling down.
Thank you, Sonali. A very graceful good evening to our valued guests of honor, our guiding teachers sitting with us today, and most beloved children who are also with us today, on site and also online. Thank you so much for joining us for the launch of the book Pollution Solutions for a Cleaner, Greener Earth. It is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this special occasion. On behalf of TERI family, I first of all extend my most sincere thanks to our esteemed guests, Mr. M.B. Iyer, Director, GAIL India Limited, and senior colleagues from GAIL for supporting TERI in bringing out this publication. Today, we have witnessed effusive and exuberant energies brought in through the panel discussion moderated by Dr. Sunil Pandey, sir, Director TERI, Mr. Santanu Roy, sir, Executive Director GAIL India Limited, Professor Kavita Sharma, a friend and guiding soul from NCRT, and Dr. Sumit Sharma, a friend and forever from UNEP. A special thank you to Ms Urmi Goswami, author of the book, who also lighted up the panel discussion with her views on the subject. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would also like to acknowledge the hard work put in by TERI publishing team in bringing out this publication, and also my colleagues at EA for curating this event. A special thank you to Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General TERI. Ma'am, your presence speaks volume of your commitment towards youth, children, and youth. Thank you so much for sparing time. We conclude the event, and I request all of you to join us for a cup of tea. Once again, a sincere thank you to all present. Thank you.